Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Student Loan Debt Informational Webinar. If you're looking for information regarding student loans, then you're in the right place. My name is Samantha Sang, and I'm the Legislative Director and a Policy Advisor at NextGen Policy. Today's webinar is brought to you by Assemblymember Mike Fong, representing Assembly District 49, the California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation, or what we call it DFPI, and the Campaign for California Borrowers' Rights Coalition. I know folks are logging on right now, so we'll take a quick pause just to let some more enter the room. All right. And again, this is the webinar regarding student loan information. So to get us started today, we're so appreciative and excited to have Assemblymember Mike Fong with us. And we thank him for putting on this timely webinar when we know right now so many of us with student loans have a lot of questions. So it's my honor to introduce Assemblymember Mike Fong. The Assemblymember was elected to the 49th District of to the California State Assembly in the special election in February of 2022. His district includes, and hopefully many of you all are tuning in from, the areas of Alhambra, Arcadia, all the way to Monterey Park, San Gabriel, South Pasadena, and many more in this region. Assemblymember Fong currently serves as the chair of the Assembly Higher Education Committee, the chair of the Asian American and Pacific Islander Legislative Caucus, and the chair of the Select Committee on Racism, Hate, and Xenophobia. He also serves as a member of many key fiscal and policy committees in the state legislature. During his time in the Assembly, Mr. Fong has introduced legislation to increase access to quality education at every level, elevate language access for non-English speaking Californians, and improve public safety by helping to expedite the removal of dangerous weapons off our streets. Prior to serving in the Assembly, Mr. Fong served as a trustee of the Los Angeles Community College District, which serves 250,000 students. Since 2022, Mr. Fong has authored over a dozen pieces of legislation that were signed into law by the governor or incorporated in the state's budget, and has secured $35 million in funding to improve parks, community centers, and other projects in the 49th District. With that, Assemblymember Fong, I will pass it off to you.
Good morning, and thank you so much, Sam, for that warm introduction. I am Assemblymember Mike Fong, proudly representing the 49th Assembly District in the great state of California in the West San Gabriel Valley. Thank you so much to our partners, the California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation, and the Campaign for California Borrowers' Rights for co-hosting today's very important webinar. Your advocacy for our students is vital in our efforts to make higher education more affordable and accessible. Access to resources and information make a huge difference for our students as they pursue their degrees and where they are done having to navigate the challenges of student loan repayments. As chair of the Assembly Higher Education Committee, I truly believe in the power and promise of higher education to transform lives, to transform our communities, but it should not cost our students their financial freedom. In the legislature, one of my biggest priorities has been to protect and expand financial aid for our students in California. And as the legislature reconvenes next year, I'll continue this critical work to address the challenges that many of our students and graduates currently face. I want to commend everyone for joining us on this webinar today and for taking time out of your very busy day to prioritize yourself and your financial future. I understand that the current state of student loan and loan repayments is daunting, but please note that we are here to help you through this process. Lots of experts on this call here today, and we look forward to the wonderful presentations. And this is the time for you to also ask questions, and there will be experts here to answer them. Thank you so much again to our partners for helping to organize this very important webinar and for prioritizing our students here in the San Gabriel Valley and throughout California. Thank you so much.
Thank you again, Assemblymember Fong, for your support of student borrowers and getting all this important information out to Californians. All right, and so regarding today's webinar, some important information at the top here. Please note that this is going to be recorded, and so we can get through much of the information in today's webinar. Please note that the audience members' microphone, video, and chat are muted. We have a lot to cover. But with the recording, please know that everyone who registered will get this. So you'll have a resource to refer to when you have more time or you want to look over some of the many details. The Q&A box at the bottom of your screen is available, however, so please feel free to drop in your questions there. There will be a section at the end of the webinar where we'll go over questions and answers, but feel free to drop them in throughout as well. And we've seen many headlines about student loans recently, so please note that the information in today's webinar is accurate and up to date as of this moment, but we all will keep monitoring stuff and make sure we get updated information as needed. All right, next slide. So you've heard from Assemblymember Fong, who was able to put this on today for you all, and you'll be hearing from the Department of Financial Protection and Innovation in just a moment as well. But today's webinar is also brought to you by the Campaign for California Borrowers' Rights Coalition. We're a statewide diverse coalition working to support borrowers throughout the state, no matter where you all are at your student loan journey, to give you resources, timely information, and to effect long-lasting changes as well. My organization, NextGen, along with the Student Borrower Protection Center, Student Debt Crisis Center, Consumer Reports, and Young Invincibles, all co-lead the coalition. And you'll be hearing from Sabrina from Student Debt Crisis Center and Sada from Young Invincibles today as well. And with that, I'll hand it off to Selena, our very own California Student Loan Servicing Ombudsperson at DFPI.
Thank you, Sam. Good morning, everyone. It is my pleasure to be here today. I am with the DFPI. I'm the ombudsperson here for the state of California. And one of my main duties is to work with California student loan borrowers and to help them understand their repayment options and their rights. So thank you for being here today. As it's been mentioned, it is really a crucial time and there is so much going on. So thank you for managing your debt, for just being informed, because we know this information is ever changing and it's just very important to your financial futures. So about the DFPI, we are the state of California's Consumer Protection Agency. We regulate companies of financial products to ensure compliance, and this includes federal student loan servicers. We accept and we evaluate consumer complaints against financial companies or those who offer financial products, and we take enforcement and legal actions when these companies are not in compliance. We do enforce all student-related protections here in the state of California, and then we conduct education and outreach to enhance consumer awareness and to protect consumers from fraud and abuse. Next, please. Just a quick overview of today's program. We will be reviewing loan types, your student loan servicers. We will be discussing repayment plans, and we will be talking about current debt relief initiatives and updates. And again, please note, we are not financial counselors or attorneys. We are advocates and experts here to help. And this information being shared today is accurate as of today. So things are ever changing, and we do know that things come up and the next morning you'll wake up and you'll hear announcements. So we will try to explain some of these initiatives going on and how it will affect you now. Next, please. How much student loan debt do we have in California? We have approximately 4 million borrowers that owe $141 billion of student loan debt. Most of that is federal debt. The average debt load of a California borrower is $37,000, and the majority of debt is held by borrowers between the ages of 35 to 49 years old. The default rate in California is 7%, and between 1995 and 2017, the balance of total outstanding federal student loan debt has increased more than sevenfold, from 187 billion to, this was in 2017, 1.4 trillion. So it's increased even more since then. We are currently at $1.78 trillion of student loan debt, and it is the second highest consumer debt category behind mortgages in the nation. Next, please. And we do know that student loan debt burdens are disproportionately held by women, low-income borrowers, and borrowers of color. So this debt is impacting some borrowers more than others. And there could be many factors. Could be due to the rising cost of tuition and the fees at public colleges and universities, the racial wage gap, which results in less family support for those entering their post-secondary journey, predatory institutions and practices, and then once borrowers graduate and they enter the workforce, the gender and racial pay gap. A borrower in a 75% minority neighborhood is 5 times more likely to fall behind on their student loan payments. Women hold nearly 2/3 of the national student loan debt, and Black women have the highest rates of default. Next, please. The Department of Education recently released information which also gave us a glimpse at another population, vulnerable population that is also burdened by student loan debt. Borrowers over the age of 50 hold $400 billion of the federal student loan debt. So these numbers were not available before this year. So now we can see how it's affecting this vulnerable population. So 6 in 10 seniors with debt entered repayment more than 15 years ago, and most of this debt is for their own education. Nearly 1/3 of borrowers in default are 50 years of age and older. And as you can see here, the older the borrower, the higher risk of default that they're in. So we are seeing this other vulnerable population that is now being affected. Next, please. And in order to help these borrowers and to mitigate some of this debt, some states, including California, has passed legislation to protect borrowers. In California, Assembly Bill 376 was passed in 2021, and it is a protection that applies to borrowers with both federal and private loans. And what this protection does is it prohibits servicers. So the student loan servicer is a company that manages the borrower student loan. It prohibits them from engaging in abusive, unfair, or deceptive practices and requires that they work in the best interest of borrowers. It requires that they provide borrowers with information and applications for income-driven repayment plans, or those IDR plans, and other forms for federal benefits and protections. And so if you require information about public service loan forgiveness, any other of the forgiveness or discharge programs, total permanent disability, or borrower defense discharge, they should be providing you with that information. It establishes special protections for military borrowers, those working in public service, older borrowers, and borrowers with disabilities. This protection here, or this part, is really important, especially right now with all the changes going on, with all the transfers going on. It protects borrowers from any negative consequences stemming from a sale, assignment, transfer, or system conversion. So we know that some of the student loan servicers have transferred their platforms, have switched their platforms. So if a borrower incurs any negative financial consequence, the servicer could be in violation. Under this protection, a borrower also has the right to take legal action against their servicer. This is called a private right of action. And as I said, this applies to borrowers with both federal and private loans. A borrower can file a complaint with our department, or they can contact me to find out if the servicer is in possible violation or if they could warrant a complaint. Next, please. And now I will pass it over to Sarah.
Thank you, Selena, for that amazing information. And just as a reminder, Selena is a resource for California student borrowers, so please feel free to reach out to her as well. So there are several different types of student loans, and generally there are 2 big buckets of student loans. So you have federal loans and private loans. Most of the things that we're going to talk about today will primarily impact federal loan holders. Private student loans are not, private student loan holders do not have access to the same federal student protections that and resources and programs that federal loan holders have. So Just a note there. And then in federal loans, we have two buckets, and I'm just going to go over this briefly. We have direct loans, so these are direct subsidized or unsubsidized loans, graduate loans, Parent Plus loans. We also have Perkins loans, and then federal family education loan program loans. And so this loan program ended in 2010, but for some borrowers who were attending school before that, some of them still hold these types of loans. So just very briefly, these are the different types of student loans that exist out there. Next slide, Kimberly. And we also have student loan servicers. So when you're looking at your loan and you're looking at who the servicer is that you're going through to pay off your loans, these are some of the different ones. And for you to be able, if you don't know whether you have a federal student loan or private loan, you'd be able to kind of figure that out based on your servicer. And so some of the federal servicers are on the left, including Mohila, Nelnet, Heartland, and then some of the private servicers include Discover, Navient, who was I believe, a federal loan servicer and then became a private one. And so there is also a process that's happening right now where if your loan was serviced by Navient, it was being transferred over to Mohila's portfolio. We also have Sallie Mae, SoFi, Wells Fargo. A private servicer can be a lender, but they also cannot be a lender and can just be the third party that's being used to service your loan. So these are just the different kinds of servicers that exist out there. And if you have one of these and you don't know what type of loan you have, whether you have a federal or private loan, this is a good resource to use to identify. Okay, next we're going to go over how to use studentaid.gov. This is essentially the website that you go to have access to information about your student loan. And there are a lot of really important resources on studentaid.gov. And if you have any questions about your federal loans or the programs that are available to you, there is a lot of information on this site. So to log on to studentaid.gov, make sure you type it in as studentaid.gov. When you type it into Google, there are sometimes other websites that appear that, are not under the Department of Ed or Student Aid. So once you log on to studentaid.gov, and we'll go over to the next slide, you essentially just, if you don't have an account, you can create an account or have assistance logging into your account if you forget your password or have any difficulty there. And there is a phone number here on the right side that you can call in case you are having difficulty logging into your account. So on the studentaid.gov dashboard, you can see on the right here, there is the profile name. So we see here it's Sabrina. And on the dashboard, you can look planning ahead. There's FAFSA information. But in order to see the details of your specific loan, there is a button on the bottom here where you click View Details under the My Aid section to be able to see details about your loans. And a note on the right side here under My Loan Servicers, you can see down here, it's in a red box. It says Department of Ed /Mohila. That's how you know who your servicer is. And in the case of this individual, they have a federal student loan. Next slide, please. So once you click on View Details, you'll be able to have a breakdown or you'll be able to see a summary of your loans. So this individual has 11 loans, and you can see they have 2 servicers and see the total cost of their loans that they have right now. So we have the total balance here in the middle. And then once you scroll down, you'll be able to see a breakdown of your loans. So you can see down there, for example, the different loan types. They have 3 Perkins loans, which is at a 0 balance, 4 subsidized loans, and 4 unsubsidized loans, bringing their total balance up to the total balance that we see up there under the summary information. So this is just really beneficial information for you to see how much you have left in each type of loan that you have. And then up here, you have the different, going back up to kind of the summary cost, you'll see your principal cost, as well as the interest that you have, which brings you to your total loan balance. Next slide. And we're going to also go over student loan repayment options. And I believe I'll hand it over to.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Thank you for that information. Yes, the dashboard, your studentaid.gov is going to be your main hub for everything. So a lot of times I receive questions from borrowers and I ask them what type of loans do they have, and they are not sure. They are not sure who their servicer is. So I always refer them back to the studentaid.gov because they will find not only their loan information, their balances, PSLF information, which we're going to discuss shortly, but you will also find your information about your servicer. So it's very important that you are familiar with studentaid.gov. Now we will be talking about student loan repayment options, and I just want to talk about programs that are specific to California borrowers. These are repayment assistance, loan scholarships, grants for borrowers and students that are in that provide direct patient care access in certain areas. So these are programs that are administered by the California Department of Healthcare Access and Information, and these are different than your actual federal repayment plan. So these are just some programs that are available, and we wanted to highlight for you because they are not very well known, but these are available if you are in a dental, medical, social services, maybe mental health programs, mental health employees and students. So I wanted to highlight this, and then Sabrina will be covering your federal repayment options.
Thank you, Selena. Hi, everyone. My name is Sabrina Calazans. I'm with the Student Debt Crisis Center. And so let's jump right in. So when you do enter into repayment, folks are automatically placed into the 10-year standard repayment plan. So this is a 10-year plan with fixed monthly payments. They do not change over time. However, we understand for folks that have large loan balances that this might be an unaffordable option. So that's when we look to income-driven repayment plans for folks to make sure that they don't fall into delinquency and default. And don't worry, we're going to cover all of these topics very shortly. Okay, so now this is when we get into student loan repayment plans where action is required. And when we say action, we mean actively having to apply to enroll in these plans. So if the standard plan isn't something that you'd like, there are income-driven repayment plans. Now, these payments can potentially be more affordable. They are alternatives to falling into delinquency and default, and they are calculated as your monthly payments will be calculated as a percentage of your discretionary income. So it's going to be based on income and family size, not your loan amount. This will lock in a lower monthly payment for a year. So for folks who have lower incomes or those who may have lost a job or who have decreased incomes, it may be worth getting into an IDR plan. When your income changes, if it changes at any point, if at one point you're working and you all of a sudden don't have a job or you're making $0, you can always call your servicer or you can recertify your income and your family size and let them know that something has changed. So if you're making $0, your payment should be $0. Now, the downside to an IDR plan versus the standard plan is that the standard plan is a 10-year repayment plan versus 20 to 25 years when it comes to IDR plans. Now, this is a significant increase in the length of repayment. However, if it prevents you from falling into delinquency and default and really helps to lower your monthly payment, it may be worth doing so. Next slide. Okay. Just looking at an overview again of the federal repayment plan. So there's a standard plan that folks are automatically enrolled in. If you'd like to enroll in an IDR plan, you can apply, in which you then find your options here. There is the SAVE plan. There is IBR, which is income-based repayment. There's PAY, which is pay as you earn. And there is ICR, which is income contingent repayment. Now, there's a lot of things going on in the repayment program, as Sam, Selena, and Sada have both said. There is a lot going on. So We're going to touch on save later, but there is litigation and a legal challenge to that plan, but folks are still able to enroll in it at this time. IBR is another option that is available to folks. There is a portion that folks do need to have or show some sort of financial hardship to be eligible for IBR. Not all folks are eligible for that. However, you can go to studentaid.gov and go through the loan simulator and see if you are eligible to enroll in that plan. Now, pay and ICR. If you applied for pay or ICR prior to July 1st, 2024, then you haven't had your application processed yet, don't worry. Your application will be processed and you should be placed in that plan. However, if you've applied or tried to apply now, you won't be able to do so. Those are temporarily, or those are stopped at this moment. Folks cannot enroll in that plan unless you have consolidated Parent Plus loans, in which you can enroll those into ICR. So as of right now, no one can get into pay, and only consolidated Parent Plus loans can get into ICR. We do expect and have heard rumors of this potentially changing and those becoming available again. However, that is not available at this time to confirm. So we are just awaiting news on that. And then there are alternative plans including graduated repayment, extended repayment, and extended graduated repayment. These are plans that don't fall under the umbrella of the IDR plans. They are longer repayment plans as well. They're like 25 years. Some of them include incremental increases to the payments. So we don't talk much about that, but they do exist if folks are interested in that. Next slide. All right, so when we're looking at the IDR plans, it really is worth going through the loan simulator, in my opinion, to figure out which one is the best for you. There are varying monthly payment amounts and timeframes associated with each one. When it comes to SAVE, which is technically currently suspended, and we're going to talk about that shortly, it was supposed to take 5% of your discretionary income as a monthly payment for undergrad with 20 years of repayment, or a weighted average between 5 and 10% if you have a combination of undergrad and grad loans over a span of 25 years. Now, if you borrowed after July 1st, 2014, and you were enrolled in IBR, it would look at 10% of your discretionary income and a 20-year repayment period. If you borrowed before this date and you were enrolled in IBR, it was 15% of your monthly payment amount of your income, over 25 years. If you're in ICR, and this tends to be the least generous for some folks plan, it is 20% of your monthly payment of your discretionary income over 25 years, and then pay, which is pay as you earn, looked at 10% and 20-year time frame. And I believe that pay also has a financial hardship piece that you do have to prove. Most likely, if you have a balance higher than your income, then you would be eligible for pay. Next slide. Okay, so what happens if I don't make payments? So you might have heard of some programs called the On-Ramp to Repayment Period and Fresh Start, which were programs that were in place over the past year. They did end on September 30th of this year. The on-ramp was essentially a grace period, a 12-month grace period, in which if you did not make a payment during that time, you were not supposed to be reported to credit agencies. There was no collections. There was none of that happening at that time. It was essentially a protective period if you missed a payment. And Fresh Start was a program in which you can get your defaulted loans out of default and back into good standing. So now what happens that these programs have come to an end? So delinquency and default are back as threats for folks. So your loan is considered delinquent the day after your payment has been due and you have not made a payment. So once you miss a payment, officially your loan is in delinquency. However, after 90 days of non-payment, you will be reported to credit bureaus. So that's where the negative consequences really start piling up. And then you're considered to be in default after 270 days of not making a payment. So about 9 months. If you don't make a payment within that time, you are then considered to be in default. Some of the consequences associated with default include tax refunds being withheld, garnishment of wages and Social Security, no or limited access to federal aid. However, that does not include natural disaster and FEMA assistance. We have confirmed that with the Department of Education. And there are some ways for you to get out of default. Now, they're not quite as simple as Fresh Start, but there are options. There's loan rehabilitation, in which you can agree in writing alongside your servicer to make these 9 voluntary, reasonable and affordable monthly payments as they've determined within 20 days of this due date, and make all 9 payments during a period of 10 months. It seems simple. It's a little bit more complicated than that, and you can only benefit from loan rehabilitation one time. Now, the other option that is available is a loan consolidation. You can apply to consolidate your loans and then enroll them in an IDR plan. If you haven't consolidated your loans and still have that as an option, that would be the best pathway forward to try and get your loans out of default. However, if that's not an option and you have consolidated, then you may want to look into loan rehabilitation. Okay, now let's get into the SAVE plan. We did see a couple of questions pop into the Q&A about this, so let's take a look and see what's happening. As I mentioned before, there are current lawsuits against the SAVE plan, and there are impacts on borrowers. So there are 18 state attorneys general, led by Missouri and Kansas, unfortunately, which have sued to block the SAVE plan. These cases are ongoing, but a recent court order prevents ED, or the Department of Education, from offering the SAVE plan in the midst of all of this litigation. So all the folks who have enrolled in SAVE or who have applied for SAVE are placed into an administrative forbearance because of the servicers being unable to bill people properly at this time. During this forbearance, you are not required to make payments, and interest will not accrue. So online and paper applications are available for folks trying to apply for SAVE and other IDR plans, but you will be placed into this forbearance until the litigation continues. We're going to talk about this shortly, but I just do want to note upfront that PSLF, so Public Service Loan Forgiveness, and IDR, or Income-Driven Repayment credits, do not count during this forbearance. So let's take a look at the next slide here. Should I apply for another IDR plan? I did see that question in the chat here a couple times. So you should consider changing IDR plans if you want to continue receiving and working towards PSLF and IDR credits, and you are close to reaching that threshold. If you don't want to enroll in another IDR plan, or you are not eligible for IBR, income-based repayment, as an alternative to SAVE, you can select to be placed in the standard plan, because not all borrowers are eligible for all IDR plans exactly, and things are changing by the day, as Selena noted. Please refer to studentaid.gov for the most up-to-date information. What we are sharing here today is what is true as of today. You may want to consider sticking with the SAVE plan if you don't mind not receiving those PSLF or IDR credits. Or there is an option that we've been told, but again, it is a risk, where you could potentially use the buyback program if you're close to loan forgiveness and take advantage of that. We are not certain and have not been provided guidance of how that would work, but that is an option available. Another reason to stick with SAVE is if you would like to remain in an interest-free forbearance, and if you would benefit from not having to make a payment. So if things are tight, if you're unable to afford a monthly payment at this time, and you're currently enrolled in SAVE, you may want to consider staying there to prevent the risk of falling into delinquency or default. Now, if you want to apply for an IDR plan, you can do so online or via a paper application. You can go to studentaid.gov, where there are the online applications, and you can also find the paper forms as well. You can then visit your servicer's website, log in, and upload that documentation. Or you can also mail it in or fax if that's something that you'd like to do. You may need to provide income documentation, including a recent tax return or transcript, a W-2, a pay stub, a bank statement, or an interest or dividend statement to verify your income information. And then I do want to note that processing times are extremely delayed and can take upwards of a month to process applications. So during that time, you should be placed into what is called a processing forbearance. A processing forbearance is supposed to last 60 days, and during that time, interest will accrue. However, you will be eligible for PSLF and IDR credits when you are placed into that processing forbearance. If you are not automatically placed into that processing forbearance for some reason, you can call your servicer and request to be placed into one. That is an option available. Next slide. And then here's what you should have on hand when applying for an IDR plan. So your permanent and or mailing address, family size, employment information, and an employer address, income documentation, again, as I stated, a W-2, a pay stub, an employer letter certifying gross income, a bank account statement, interest or dividend statement. And then something that we've noticed on studentaid.gov is that even if you've opted into the IRS integration in the past, allowing the Department of Education and the IRS to essentially communicate with one another and see your income documentation, everyone is being prompted at this time to provide income documentation, regardless of whether you've opted in or not. So make sure that you have that on hand, because you will be prompted to upload that and you won't be able to proceed without having that information accessible and ready to be uploaded. Next slide. All right, I think with that, I'm tossing it back to Sada.
Thank you so much, Sabrina, for all that helpful information. Next, we're going to go over some different pathways to debt relief. So current debt relief programs are working. We can see that under the Biden administration, we've seen $175 billion in debt relief approved for almost 5 million Americans. $74 billion have been approved for 1 million plus public service workers. That was when there was a push that was a few years ago where they were accepting a wide array of PSLF applications. $56.5 billion for 1.4 million plus borrowers through IDR, which is income-driven repayment. $28.7 billion for 1.6 million plus borrowers that were cheated by their schools or misled by their schools, and $16.2 billion for over 500,000 borrowers with a total and permanent disability. Go next. So next we're going to go over PSLF and the requirements for the program. So the Public Service Loan Forgiveness is a program that was started in 2007, and it is a program that if you work for a qualifying employer and you are in service for 10 years, or you make 120 monthly payments, then you are eligible for loan forgiveness. One note to make here is that payments are cumulative and not consecutive. So if there were some months, let's say, or some years even, that you didn't make any payments while you have a PSLF application underway, that is completely fine. You can resume making payments whenever. And as long as the payments total 120 monthly payments. One other note to make here is that you cannot make 120 payments. Let's say you make 2-3 payments a month to reach 120 payments. That doesn't work either. It has to be 120 monthly payments. And all remaining debt is forgiven tax-free. So there are some criteria that you need to check in order to see if you're eligible for PSLF. Do you have a direct loan? Does your employer qualify for PSLF? We'll go over the criteria of employers that qualify. Are you in a qualifying repayment program? Are you documenting your employment using the PSLF form? And are you applying after making 120 qualifying payments? So there are some combined benefits for PSLF. If you're in an income-driven repayment program and in a PSLF, public service loan forgiveness, qualifying job, or with a qualifying employer, you will receive the maximum benefit of this program. And so essentially what this means is with an income-driven repayment program, you can be set up to have the lowest monthly payment possible for your loan type based on your income. Combining that with 10 years of service for an eligible employer and making 120 monthly payments, you'll have your loans forgiven, and at the same time, you would have paid the least amount that you need to on the loan on a monthly basis. Next. So the types of loans that do qualify, or the types of qualifications for PSLF going on for loans is direct subsidized or unsubsidized loans, direct graduate plus loans, direct consolidation loans, including ones that were created with a Parent Plus loan. And the types of employers that qualify for PSLF is any type of government, all levels of government employees, any 501c3 nonprofit, other critical public service careers. I know that someone in the chat had asked about being a physician and whether that you would qualify for PSLF. There are certain criteria under which physicians do qualify for PSLF. And repayment plans that qualify for PSLF are standard and IDR plans. So going down into what the criteria that does not qualify for PSLF, that'll be federal family education loans. Again, we mentioned this program has ended in 2010. Perkins loans are loans that are in default. These types of loans can become eligible through consolidation, but that is a specific process that you have to go through separately. And private student loans do not qualify for PSLF, and they will never qualify for PSLF. Types of employers that don't qualify for PSLF is government contractors, labor unions, 501c4s, or private employers. And then repayment plans that don't qualify includes alternative plans. So these are the repayment plans that don't count towards income-driven repayment loan forgiveness. These plans include things, programs like the graduated repayment plan or extended graduate repayment plan. And these plans tend to have very long repayment periods of 25 years, and the payments increase incrementally. Other repayment plans that are not qualifying for a PSLF is folks who are in deferment, forbearance, or default. Going on to next. So we are also going to talk about additional forms of loan forgiveness, cancellation, and discharge. So some of the additional forms of loan forgiveness, cancellation, and discharge includes total and permanent disability discharge. So this provides full forgiveness on your federal student loans if you are totally and permanently disabled. Borrowers must provide documentation from either the VA, SSA, or a medical professional, and a 3-year monitoring period applies. There's also the borrower defense repayment, borrower defense to repayment, and this is eligibility for discharge of federal student loans you took out to attend a school if the school misled you or engaged in other misconduct in violation of state laws. And a note to make here about school having misled you: it's misleading based on your criteria or your ability to receive the loan. We'll go into next. So other forms of cancellation and discharge includes the closed school discharge. So if you are enrolled in a school that is now closed, or you were enrolled in a school when your school closed while you were enrolled, or if it closed after 180 days after you withdrew, or if it closed while you were on a leave of absence, you are eligible for discharge. An additional form of discharge is false certification eligibility. So full forgiveness on federal student loans if for certain reasons you weren't able to receive a loan, but your school certified you anyway. There are 4 categories for false certification. And again, this is for when your school certifies you for a loan that you were not eligible to receive. The 4 categories are if your school certified your eligibility, even though you reported that you didn't have a high school diploma or equivalent. 2, if your school certified your eligibility to receive the loan, but at the time of certification, you had a status that disqualified you from meeting the legal requirements for employment in your state of residence, in which the occupation for the program of study was preparing you for. 3, a loan in your name was falsely certified as a result of the crime of identity theft committed against you. And 4, an employee or affiliate of the school signed your name on the loan application or promissory note without your authorization, or endorsed your loan check, or signed your authorization for electronic funds transfer without your knowledge, and the loan money was not provided to you. So that's the false certification of eligibility, the very small set of reasons as to why you would qualify for this one. And finally, the Perkins loan forgiveness and discharge. You may be eligible to have all or a portion of your federal Perkins loans canceled based on your employment or volunteer service, or discharged under certain conditions. And this is done in increments over 5 years. Next, finally, we have the teacher loan forgiveness. This is if you teach full-time for 5 complete and consecutive academic years in a low-income or educational service agency, you could be eligible for either $5,000 or $17,500 in forgiveness, depending on the subject and level that you teach. The service requirement is 5 years. There's the unpaid refund, which is if you withdrew from a school after receiving a direct or FFEL loan, the school may have been required under federal regulations to return some or all of the money to your loan servicer. And there's a death discharge. Federal student loans are discharged after the required proof of death is submitted. The borrower's family is not responsible for repaying the loans. A parent plus loan is discharged if the parent or if the student on whose behalf a parent obtained the loan dies as well. So, moving on. Great, and we'll move on to student debt relief Plan B, and I'll be tossing it back to Sabrina.
Thanks, Sada. So let's take a look at Plan B. So Plan B is essentially the plan that was proposed after the Supreme Court struck down President Biden's original plan. So after that, we went about a different route to pursue additional student debt cancellation. These were the rules that they settled on. So folks would be eligible for debt relief through Plan B if they owe more than they originally borrowed. They are eligible for loan forgiveness, but not enrolled in a program. You would be eligible for this if you entered repayment 20 or more years ago and you just have undergraduate loans. If you entered repayment 25 or more years ago and you have any undergraduate loans. If you are enrolled in a low financial value program, and if you are experiencing a hardship paying back on your loans. Now, that last piece there is a little bit different than the rest, but I'll get to that shortly. So challenges to debt relief Plan B. So the timeline for Plan B essentially was that the rules, excluding the financial hardship piece that I just mentioned at the end, were set to be released and implemented in fall 2024. Now, there were challenges to this plan already, even though the final rules have not been set. The Department of Education had sent guidance to servicers to essentially prepare for upcoming debt relief. And what happened is that MOHELA, which is one of the federal student loan servicers, leaked this to the same attorneys general that sued against the original student debt cancellation plan. So MOHELA is involved now in blocking relief on this second plan as well. So a judge in Missouri issued a preliminary injunction on the plan so that the government cannot cancel any debt under Plan B. This is still not finalized. The case is unresolved. This is still ongoing. We anticipate to see more moving forward. And just before I toss it over to the next speaker, I did want to note that because things are changing all of the time, you may have heard in the news or recently about the financial hardship piece, and that is still very much early on in the early phases, and it would allow for up to 8 million folks to receive loan forgiveness through the plan. 6 million folks would be eligible for automatic debt relief through the plan, and an additional 2 million folks would be able to apply to be eligible for it. Essentially, it would look at different factors. So likelihood to default on their loans, if you have other sorts of debt like medical debt or potentially credit card debt, and if you've been impacted by natural disasters. So this is still very much in the early phases, but the Department of Education has released something. We are going to keep a close eye on it and relay as much information as we have it. So with that, I believe I'm tossing it to Selena.
Thank you, Sabrina. Thank you for that great information. I do want to point out that with everything going on, unfortunately, scammers have jumped into the game, basically. So we need borrowers to be aware of these scammers. And the best way to protect yourself really is by knowing the name of your servicer. As I said at the beginning, studentaid.gov and your student loan servicer are going to be basically your main point of contact, your main information hub. So if you get a call text, email from another company, even if the name sounds legit, the organization sounds like they have your information, just verify the name of the company. It's really easy to just Google the name of the company and you will see if they have complaints. You will see if they have a website where they are charging borrowers. So these companies, what they are doing is they are buying borrowers' information so they may know your balance amount, your loan type. And so you may think that it is a legit organization. I just spoke to a borrower yesterday who was making payments to a company who promised to provide forgiveness to discharge the loans. And so it is very important that you protect yourself. Don't give out login information, your FSA PIN. Do not provide that information. Do not subscribe to any monthly service or sign a contract. These companies may require you to sign a power of attorney. And the only thing they are doing is they are logging on to your studentaid.gov portal for you and they are making changes. So they will either place you on forbearance, so you think you have a no payment due, which you may not in fact have a payment due anyway, but you are still paying them. So please be very careful. Just remember there's nothing that a company can do for you that you can't do on your own for free. Your loan servicer and the federal government are not going to call you relentlessly. These companies, these employees of these companies will offer special access. There's a sense of urgency, and it may likely be a scam. And that's for anything, not just student loan scams. So they do pressure you. It's very important, especially elderly borrowers. I know with so much information, to know it is confusing. You hear stuff on the news. So remember who your trusted sources are. You can file a complaint if you have been a victim of fraud, but please note it is very hard to get that money back. Typically, borrowers have to contact their bank and cancel payments. And because you have signed a legal document, legal contract with these companies, sometimes they will come back and threaten you with breach of contract or something. But just make sure you keep all the documentation. And again, protect yourself. You can file a complaint with DFPI with us or with the Federal Trade Commission. They are really ramping up on their enforcement too against these companies. Next, please. So if you have any issues or complaints, the Department of Education also has a student loan ombudsman group, and they can help you resolve discrepancies with your loan balance and payments. They can help you explain your loan interest and collection charges. They can help you identify options for resolving your issues related to consolidation, service quality, default status, bankruptcy, income tax refund, offsets, and other concerns. So here is the email for the Department of Education, the Student Loan Ombuds office there, and they have a large staff there, so they'll be able to respond. But just be aware that right now with everything going on, not only may there be a delay in answering, but you will just get a response that tells you to wait until until they complete transfers, wait until they complete the adjustment review. So a lot of these issues right now, a lot of these questions, unfortunately, they are not able to answer just because of so much that is going on and so much that is up in the air with the litigation. So to say that it's a turbulent time, yeah, it really is. So we appreciate everyone's patience, and we understand that this is affecting borrowers that are on the PSLF track, that are trying to manage their payments, trying to figure out their interest. And not only are they trying to provide the best information as possible, but we are as well too here at the department. Next, please. I think we will jump on the Q&A now. I did highlight some one or two questions that I did want to answer live, if that's okay. It's regarding PSLF. We had 2 questions about the 4 years of the payment pause, and I did want to note that those 4.5 years do count towards the PSLF qualifying credits. So as long as you were in repayment and with the qualifying employer, even though you were on the COVID forbearance, that administrative forbearance, those 4.5 years do count towards your PSLF credit. Now, the new ones, the new forbearance, if you're now on the save forbearance or processing forbearance, those are different, but the 4.5 years during the payment pause do count.
Yes,
All right.
absolutely. Thank you, Selena, for clarifying that one. We did flag that as a common question as well. And thanks everyone again. And we know that's a lot of information. We're glad that we've been able to keep up in the Q&A, but we will go over some more questions now. And again, just kind of taking a look through the Q&A box and kind of the common ones that we've been seeing. And maybe on that same topic, Selena, if you or Sabrina maybe want to jump in here, but can you remind everyone kind of, Judith and others have been asking questions like, why are borrowers being put into an administrative forbearance right now?
So,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
oh, sorry, Selena. I was just going to say there are a few reasons as to why someone might be placed into a forbearance right now. If you were enrolled in the SAVE plan, you applied for SAVE and you were in that, you were placed into an administrative forbearance. If you were in the SAVE plan and you wanted to get out of the SAVE plan and you applied to something like IBR, income-based repayment, you should have been placed into a processing forbearance in which they are taking 60 days to process your application. Now, it could take longer than that, but it's a 60-day period in that processing forbearance. Now, in addition to that, there is a traditional forbearance in which, Selena, did you want to talk about that and explain how that differs from the SAVE forbearance?
Sorry, I was looking up information for one of the questions. Traditional forbearance, so that is a forbearance that is requested by a borrower. So that could be due to a financial hardship. Typically, those do not count towards PSLF and the forgiveness program. So those are the ones that typically if you couldn't make your payment. So usually when a borrower requests a forbearance, we would just recommend that they get on an IDR plan where they could get a $0 payment. But that is one that is just requested by the borrower for directly to the student loan servicer. So a lot of these ones that borrowers are being placed on right now, they're automatic and you can't call and be taken off of them. And so that's where they're a little bit different. And they've always been available. That's always been an option that's been available for borrowers as well.
Great. Thank you both for that clarification. There's always so many different types on kind of every step of the way here. So very good to keep that clear. We did get a lot of questions around PSLF, and we did go over that, but maybe just kind of quick notes here, top lines. Can you remind everyone which employers count towards PSLF or what kind of other employment requirements are there when applying for PSLF?
I can take that real quick. So PSLF, you have to be an employee. You can be a government employee. So any federal, state, tribal, county, city, 501c3, so a nonprofit offering certain services. In California, a non-501c3 may qualify if they are providing certain direct services. That's all in the PSLF on studentaid.gov, but you do have to be working at least 30 hours to be considered full-time. It has to be paid employment. And if it doesn't matter what position you're in, you could be in any position as long as your employer or the name on your paycheck is the qualifying employer. So it doesn't have to be any certain position. So those are the basic PSLF requirements. And then I'm sorry, Sam, were we mentioning the student network? It might be the next one. I wanted to put that up for borrowers. Yes, can I just briefly?
Yeah.
In California, through the DFPI, we have created the Student Loan Empowerment Network. So I've seen some questions where borrowers need more one-on-one help, and this is what this network is for. So there are 14 organizations that throughout the state, including legal aids, that can help borrowers They provide free assistance, one-on-one. You can either call to get matched with a provider, or you can go online and fill out a form. But this network right here, I mean, this is, please use it. Please use it. And they will be able to help you with any student loan issue, whether it's you just have a question about PSLF or whether you have a complex private loan issue where you're being sued. So it could be anywhere from just counseling to legal assistance. So please, the network launched in June and in July, and there is still availability. So we really want borrowers to take advantage of the network, especially right now with everything going on, just to help you understand your options. So please write down this email. It's free. It is administered through our agency.
Thank you for highlighting that. And yes, we will go over quickly. I think Sara will go over a few more resources for borrowers here that, again, you can all take a look at in the recording and follow-up emails that we'll be sending, but just wanted to highlight some other resources available to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Sam. So some important federal student aid links to check out and be able to find really crucial information, a lot of information that we've gone through today. And these are some of the links that we've also been providing down in the Q&A chat. So for any information on your student loan, you will want to go to studentaid.gov and log in, and again, be able to see that under your details. For Save Plan information, you'll be able to follow this link here. There are also important links around public service loan forgiveness, IDR account adjustment. I know there was a question in there about high payments, so please check that out. IDR plans, how to apply for IDR, how to consult a consolidation application, where to get total and permanent disability discharge, as well as the email for the student loan ombudsperson, which is ombudsman@ed.gov. These links, you'll be able to access them when you get the recording of the webinar. Just kind of scroll over to this time period and you'll find these links in there. Additional important links, please subscribe to DFPI's newsletter. They are always providing really crucial updates for students. And if you want to contact DFPI with any questions, please go to outreach@dfpi.ca.gov. You are also able to file a complaint through DFPI if you have one against your servicer. And if you have any questions for our California student loan ombudsperson, please email Selena at selena.damian@dfpi.ca.gov. DFPI also has a YouTube channel, and there are resources on how to navigate student debt relief programs at cancelmystudentdebt.org. And if you want to learn more about the work that we do, please visit the californiaborrowers.org page, and also visit CFPB, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, to file a complaint as well. I believe those are all of the important links to go through. I know it's a lot, but thank you so much for joining us. I'll pass it over to Sam to close us out.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you everyone for attending today's webinar and sticking through. We know there's a lot of information. So please take your time with the recording and resources that we'll be sending to everyone who registered as a follow-up. Special thanks again to Assemblymember Fong and his staff, his office, for putting this on today with us, and to Selena and DFPI. Thank you to our team members, Kimberly and Andrea, for working behind the scenes here today. And of course, if you have any questions, hopefully everyone here knows that there are multiple points where you can get individualized, help with your student loans, especially through that student loan service network that Selena highlighted. So please reach out. You're not alone, and there are resources for you right now that you can access. All right, and with that, thank you everyone, and please have a great rest of your day.